David Eickholt and Eliot Clough here for HawkeyeInsider.com. I know what everybody's first question is. No, Sean's not coming. Sean's busy right now. Yes. He had like 3,000 words on last night's game, takeaways, good stuff from him. Eliot, I know you were on scene yesterday. You guys had your rapid reaction. I had about a 45-minute podcast with Andrew Downs. So if you missed anything from last night, be sure to check those out. A lot of good stuff. Obviously, we'll have full coverage on Friday. So again, there's a lot of basketball coverage to come, but we have to focus on the main task at hand. And that's breaking down what's going to happen on Saturday. And I got to tell you, Ellie, I think this is one of the most intriguing matchups across college football this week. This has legitimate college football playoff implications. And I don't know what to think. Not going to lie to you. I've looked up and down this both rosters. The weather looks like it's going to favor Iowa, and it's been kind of funny to me when all the Oregon fans are acting like, oh, there's wind and rain in Oregon too. Well, yeah, that's not the point. One team passes the ball a lot more efficiently than the other. Bad weather makes those things more difficult. And another thing that the Cover 3 podcast actually brought up, which I thought was interesting, in bad weather, they kind of let you get away with a little bit more grabbing and jersey tugging on the back end. So if they take some shots downfield, are they going to be confident in pulling the trigger there? So I say all of that to give you the floor about where you want to start, because I could go 100 different directions right now.
Yeah. I think we probably maybe start talking just maybe a little bit about the college football playoff rankings as opposed to the AP poll. I think the college football playoff ranking, I didn't necessarily expect Iowa to be top 20. I expected them probably like 23 is what I was thinking. But Iowa got a lot more respect from the college football playoff committee than the AP poll. And, I would probably say this is the first year where I've really had a full grasp of what the AP poll, not that I didn't know what it was before, but like a full grasp of the history of the AP poll and who votes and why they vote and how they vote. And it's really become clear how flawed it is, because these people are clearly not watching the games. Iowa is a top 25 team, and there is no doubt in my mind. Like I said, I thought 20 was a little high in the college football playoff rankings, but that's the one that matters. And that's like, there's implications with that. I mean, if Iowa continues to win, or especially wins this weekend, we're talking about potentially a top 15 team in the country.
Easily.
And that's where you're on the fringes of the playoff. And if you go and beat USC, then it's like, okay, now you control your destiny sort of situation. So I think we almost have to start with that. Oregon at number 9, which I thought was interesting. Only one loss, and they're the number 9 team in the country, and they lost to Indiana, who's really good. So
interesting. You know what's funny? Have you looked at? And I'm saying this because I only discovered this yesterday. But did you look at Oregon's schedule and their resume behind it? I mean, Iowa. I think if you take Iowa's record versus the Big Ten teams that Iowa's beaten, and you took their record, it's like 5-17. Eliot, Oregon's is 4-18. They have a worse. Their strength of schedule has not been good. The only team they've beaten above 500 is Northwestern this season. Okay. So Oregon has not proved themselves yet. Now, again, we're not naive. There's a ton of talent on that team. They're the elite of elite athletes. I think Dan Lanning's the top 3 coach in college football. I think he'll be number 1 one day. He'll have his time, right? So that's not to shortchange them. But they're almost just as desperate to prove themselves as Iowa is, to a certain extent. So that's kind of in the eyes of the committee, because you think about this, man, Oregon's not getting in with 2 losses. No. That's what this is telling me. They have to win out. And I know how weird that sounds. Like Iowa can get in as a 2-loss team. Oregon might be able to sneak in depending on the way things shake out. But they probably got to win out, man, in order to make the play. I mean, obviously Iowa has to win out to make the playoff.
Right.
And I know you're a criticism of the AP poll. It's fair. I agree with it. We've talked about it. I'm not shaming them from this standpoint, I know you're not either, but I just want to clarify. People who cover teams don't have time.
No,
Dude, they don't have time on a game day to watch everything and be invested. And I think the AP for so long got away with, well, we're going to have so many writers in this region, so they'll be biased toward their region. And so when you take all that into totality, it's going to be a pretty level playing field, right? It just doesn't work anymore like that. I thought the committee would go as high as 20 about Iowa. I expected them about 22, 21, 22. I didn't expect them to get in the teens, but once the Iowa was unranked in the AP poll, I tweeted something like, watch, the college football playoff committee is going to get right. I put on our message board, it's the only one that matters. We all know it. But this sets up for the first ranked game in Kinnick Stadium since Iowa Penn State 2021. Yes, it's been that long, and that's kind of crazy to look at. But it basically, when it comes to college, by the way, it's the only time I've ever said this. I thought the playoff committees got it right for the most part, not just about Iowa, but across the board. I actually thought they did a pretty excellent job. Still hate Tennessee being ranked. I know it's
I was just going to say that.
Tennessee should absolutely not be ranked.
No.
But
quality losses, Dave. Quality losses.
I mean, to be fair, it's interesting because I want your opinion on this too while we're on this topic. Iowa's best win is a 5-point loss to Indiana.
Yeah. That they probably should have won if Mark Gronowski was healthy, which
I hate the logic, but like we all, but I agree. I mean, there's a legitimate case that they win.
Right. We don't have to go down that.
It wasn't a lot. Yeah. But still, I mean, that's why I also wish people had mentioned, like, on national people when they talk about Iowa's game against Indiana, nobody's ever brought up the fact that Gronowski got hurt when the game was tied.
Yeah.
Like it is a factor, okay, regardless of how you feel about Iowa's lack of passing attack or whatever else. But this sets up for a monumental showdown, and this proves that Iowa is on the cusp of, you want to break that streak against ranked losses, right? You want to be taken seriously. You want to be able to be a big brand in college football. How do you do that? You knock off Oregon, and all of a sudden you're not talking about outside looking in when it comes to the playoff. Like, I haven't done the FPI or the advanced analytics on this. I think they give Iowa like a 6% chance right now to make the playoff. If they beat Oregon, dude, that's going up to 40. Like, I don't see a world where Michigan State beats Iowa. And I'm very curious how Nebraska comes out with the new quarterback and everything at UCLA, by the way. Like, I'm going to be paying close attention to that game after we get done with our coverage. But people will be talking about Iowa as a legitimate college football playoff team if they beat Oregon. Like, that's what this is setting up to be.
This puts Iowa back in that echelon of where they were in the 2008, 2009 type of season where, and, you know, it's happened since where they've upset teams like Michigan at home. And, of course, they beat Penn State in 2021. But where you see Iowa as a legitimate threat, not a team that just beats teams that they're supposed to beat and then gets clobbered by teams they're supposed to lose to. This is very important for the trajectory, the immediate trajectory of the program and the trajectory long-term when you're talking about, you know, replacing Kirk Ferentz in a few years as the head coach, and the brand that you have on the table in Iowa City. So that's a big one. It's a monumental matchup. It's so monumental that I'm skipping my stepsister's wedding for this game. Otherwise, wouldn't have made that happen. But I think the thing is too, and you know, I just watched a preview from PFF about this, is that Iowa has far and away the best offensive line in the country right now, graded wise. And of course, there's flaws in the PFF grades, but this game, you mentioned the weather factor. This game, I mean, Iowa was going to try to make it a dogfight anyway, but assuming weather sticks like it says it's going to be, it's definitely going to be a dogfight. I'm curious as to how Iowa prepares for this game. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Louisville, where they had a hose out on the field and they were just dousing footballs and handing them to the quarterback earlier this season to prepare.
That's
Did
cool.
You see that clip?
Okay. It rings a bell now, though. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, I can't remember who it was, but I'm curious as to if Iowa is doing anything like that with, you know, considering the weather. But the weather does favor the Hawkeyes. at this point in time. I think Iowa has been given, and I'll talk about this on 3 focal points later this week too, but I think Iowa has been given a mold on how to beat the Ducks because Indiana did it convincingly. If Wisconsin had a pulse offensively, that game would have been much closer than it was a couple weeks ago. And I think, well,
to be fair, Dante Moore did not play the second half. Remember that.
But still, like, I mean,
yeah.
So PFF also pointed out that the two types of defense, or the one type of defense that Moore has really struggled against is zone defense. What does Iowa play? Zone defense. And one thing that Indiana did a really good job of was disguising their blitzes. And of course, Phil Parker, if there's anybody that can do something like that, some sort of defensive wizardry, it's Phil Parker. So I've got a couple other things, but do you agree with that sentiment that there is a mold or a model for them to follow for this game?
I would say I know how I would prepare a game plan. I know what the mold would be, but I also think that involves being a little bit more of a downfield threat in the vertical passing game. Because remember this about the Indiana game as well. Indiana scored on defense, if I'm not mistaken, or they had a special teams defensive touchdown. So it would have been 23-20 instead of turning into 30-20. I will need to double check that, but I believe, if I'm remembering the game correctly, that was the case as well.
Oregon had a pick six. I know that. Maybe that's
okay. I might have mixed up that, but Indiana also knows how to push it a little bit more vertical because I think when you look at this Oregon defense, by the way, they're the interior of the defensive lines, their strength, in my opinion. They just have some absolute units there, but I also think when you look at Iowa, that's almost what you want. I mean, Cade Pieper was being talked about as a first-round pick earlier in the year, and I still think teams really like him. Logan Jones, I think, is the best center in college football, bar none, especially what he does pre-snap and everything. But they also have some great size out on the edge when it comes to the Ducks. So I think Iowa's, like Trevor Lauck and James Dunkerall, need to be dialed in. Their pass rush has not been great this year for Oregon, so I'm very curious as to what Mark's approach in games going to be when in terms of like scrambling out of the pocket, deciding when to run, because that their first priority, they're going to try to make Mark win it with his arm. They're going to install a QB spy, one or two of them, just to keep a close eye on him. But again, I think if you're Iowa, you want if you're Iowa, you want this to be relied on the offensive line, which has been the strength of this team. You want to be dependent on physicality rather than athleticism and speed.
Yep.
If it's about physicality, Iowa's going to have as good of a chance as they want to knock them off. So I do think that there's somewhat of a blueprint, but I'd also point to this. Oregon has not played a quarterback like Mark Gronowski this season. And I'm very curious as to what their defensive approach is going to be. Because I think we can predict what Iowa's going to do, but I'd also throw in this. And I need to go back to the exact quote that Kirk said yesterday. He says something along the lines of like, we can't leave anything on the table, or like we need to lay it all out there. So that tells me if you're ever going to throw in a new wrinkle, if you're ever going to bring the slow mesh back, if you're ever going to dial up more blitzes, if you're ever going to look at doing a fake punt, it's this game.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking at.
With the personnel, I mean, like you said, I added there is, you mentioned the spy is they have the athleticism to do that type of thing.
Yes.
If you let this game become an athleticism and speed versus athleticism and speed, Oregon's going to win.
No doubt.
If you let it become a physicality, a strength, Iowa should win. It will be competitive at the very least. I went back and looked at that game. Like I said, Oregon did have a pick six, but Indiana did have 2 interceptions, 2 rushing touchdowns by Roman Hemby, and then 3 field goals, and then Mendoza caught an 8-yard touchdown pass. Or threw an 8-yard touchdown pass.
Now I was going to be like, well, okay, I don't know how I
That's my
get that one. Okay, so it was the pick six I was thinking about. That's what kind of trimmed it, rather than I'm saying like the Oregon offense versus So I appreciate you going back and double checking that. So I'm just really intrigued, man. like I know I keep saying that, but the one thing that I will point to as well, when you talk about dirtying up the game, making it about physicality, Iowa cannot get punched in the mouth first, man. Like, they cannot go down 10-0. They cannot go down 14-0. Because if you do that and the rain and everything's bad and you're relying on a run game, Oregon will 100% sell out on the run. And honestly, again, it's not mind-blowing. You know how to play Iowa. But that doesn't mean you can do it against Iowa because of what they've been doing as far as, pre-snap motion, post-snap decisions, RPOs by Mark, Gronowski. I almost say Gronkowski because of what Rob Gronkowski said about Gronowski's name. So now I'm like in my own head about it. But I'd also point to two other things, two other X factors here. One, we've talked about Mark being a gamer. His approach to going into this game, I thought was really, really insightful when he talked with us yesterday. When he talked about it's about buying unwavering belief that you're going to win the game, and then you operate the rest of the week knowing you need to live up to that standard. And I thought that was a really interesting way to think about it. I think there's a ton of respect for Lanning. I think there's a ton of respect for Oregon. And you could tell Iowa's aware of what this game represents and all the narratives and everything around them. They didn't strike me as nervous. I do think they struck it as this is a big opportunity for them. Iowa's been as healthy as they've been, I think, in recent weeks as well. Mark's not 100%, but I also don't know who the hell's 100% at this point in the year. I'm very intrigued about Dante Moore and how Iowa's going to choose to cover this Oregon offense. I have one or two mismatches that I'm looking at or that Iowa will need to cover up. Are they going to have a quarterback spy? Because Dante Moore is as fast as can be, but he does not know how to protect himself when he runs the football. Could that lead to some turnovers? That remains to be seen. Are they going to rely upon the athleticism and speed, as in are they going to run a bunch of screens or short routes and hoping just to use their short area quickness to kind of out athletic like a Deshaun Lee or a TJ Hall? Or are they just going to test him deep? Are they going to have enough time to test him deep? Is Phil going to dial up more blitzes? This is going to be such a fun chess match between Lanning's offense and Parker's defense, and even vice versa. This is, of any game that we've seen this year, this was the one I circled because I remember we talked about in our preseason podcast, Eliot. A lot of the people, and I can't remember what you said, so I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. There were a lot of people that said Iowa had a better chance of upsetting Penn State than Oregon. And I just said I didn't think so, just because of the elite athleticism that Oregon had.
I think you said upsetting Oregon instead of Penn State. Or you said upsetting Penn State instead of Oregon. You meant Oregon instead of Penn State.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I think I said that at the time because, well, like everybody else, we thought Penn State was going to be really good.
Oh yeah, I'm not ragging on you for that at all. I
No.
totally understand that.
No, and then we also didn't know what Dante Moore was going to be, and if the Iowa defense was going to be able to rattle him, and I still think they can. For anybody who really wants a good idea of what they're getting into, of what Iowa's getting into, obviously listen to the A&F podcast, but secondarily, watch maybe not the entirety of the game because unless you're a sicko like us, but watch the replay or the highlights of the Indiana-Oregon game. I really think what Indiana did in terms of the disguising of the blitzes, looking like you've got 4 down linemen, dropping one into coverage, sending your middle linebacker after that number 46 guy who looks like he's just a little crazy the way he plays on the field. I can't remember his name for Indiana. I'd have to look. But just a monster for them. He is a guy that is going to F up Isaiah Jones. He had 8 tackles in this game, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. And then you throw in Aiden Fisher, number 4, for them. And Indiana's got some dudes. Jones is I don't think Montgomery is that level of psycho on the football field, but he's got the speed and he's really disrupted some quarterbacks on those middle linebacker, those Mike linebacker blitzes that Phil has sent him on. And then you throw in guys like like Zach Lutmer and Cohen Entringer, who can do a little bit of both, dropping coverage, but also get after the quarterback. Wampa, who's really good in run support. I really think Iowa has the tools defensively, maybe not to stop Oregon, because who's going to stop Oregon, but to inhibit maybe what they want to do. And again, I really think Indiana set the model. And of course, you're not going to play the exact same defense as Indiana, but there are some things that Phil Parker and company can and will do to cause that disruption. The second thing in just talking with a few people is, and also referencing the Indiana game, Roman Hemby really gave Oregon's defense fits. That physical running back that nobody likes to tackle. Enter Jazzy and Patterson.
Yeah.
Is this the Jazz Patterson game? I'm really thinking that's a possibility. Like, obviously, Kamari is going to get the bulk of the carries. Maybe Xavier Williams,
I was going to throw in
Xavier
Williams as well.
But I mean, if there is anybody that has a similar running style to Hemby, it's on this team. It's Jazz Patterson.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
I think it could be the Jazz Patterson game.
I know I'm bouncing back and forth, but the one thing I'm really concerned about when it comes to Oregon's offense versus Iowa's defense, it's going to be the linebacker pass coverage. Like, Montgomery's been good this year. I mean, what coverages is Phil Parker going to call? Is he going to trust Zach Lutmer to defend tight ends? That might be the best bet, unless you want to put Carson Shire out there, who's been pretty decent for Iowa this year. Not elite, but he's been serviceable, right? Above serviceable, leading Iowa in tackles. But do you want to test him against like an elite athlete? I mean, you look at like Oregon's second leading receiver is Kenyon Sadiq. He's got a team leading 5 touchdowns this season. I know he's had a quiet last couple of weeks, but like, he's a freak. Like, he's a really, really good tight end. And that's kind of my big thing I'm worried about is, can Iowa's linebackers limit that explosive playmaking over the middle? And if they miss that first tackle, like, do you trust your secondary to be able to go and take down the specimen of Sadiq, right? And Iowa's tackling outside of one game, I think, has been pretty good this season. I mean, hell, even the game they missed 14 tackles against Indiana, we are all praising the Iowa defense for how well they played, right? That's kind of my big kind of question mark here. But the other thing that I'm interested in what Phil Parker's going to do, you talk about disguising coverages. If I'm Phil Parker and if I'm Seth Wallace, I throw in so many different disguises and so many different looks that you're trying to rattle. Again, Dante Moore hasn't seen a bunch of college defenses. He's been really effective at the ones he's seen. How much do you want to try to throw in decoys and disguise and to try to throw off a young quarterback in a hostile environment? I think that's a very legitimate strategy as well. And, they'll probably get a look back at some past Iowa defenses just as far as like different schemes they run. But like, let's not act like that this Iowa defense has followed the same exact scheme that Phil Parker's done over the past few years. Are there like obviously parts of it? Absolutely. But how many times have we sat on this podcast and talked about how Iowa safety blitzing more? They're throwing in, Carson Shire, Jane Montgomery, Jaden Harrell, aggressively pursuing the quarterback right away. Different, line of scrimmage looks. I'm very interested at how much they're going to try to disguise and how much of it's just going to be like, all right, we're going to sit back and we're going to see if we can force Dante Moore to make a mistake and if Iowa can pounce on it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of funny that we've been saying such similar things like game after game about Iowa dialing up the pressure, but it's pertinent every game. Moore is in his first year starting. I mean, Ethan Grunkemeyer was in his first game starting.
Yeah.
Zach Lindsay was terrible on the road, continued to be terrible on the road, doubled his interceptions for the year in one game when playing at Iowa. And once Iowa dialed up the pressure against Athan Kaliakmanis and Rutgers in the second half, and then you throw in Austin Simmons too. Like, they didn't get a sack against Austin Simmons, but boy, did that dude look uncomfortable. Fernando Mendoza, you could see the weight lifted on Mendoza's shoulders when he threw that touchdown pass to Elijah Surratt at the end of the game. It's just like, oh my God, I don't have to do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Mendoza took a beating that game.
He did. And if you can rattle, I mean, is he the Heisman Trophy leader like right now?
It's probably him and Julian Sayin.
Right. Like, I mean,
yeah.
If you can do that to the Heisman Trophy favorite, it's not Moore anymore. I mean, no pun intended, but like, to me, I mean, Moore looked rattled against Indiana. Then he bleeding really bad out of his nose against Wisconsin. I don't know what happened. I'm assuming he's healthy.
He's good to go. I don't know if it was like I didn't read if it was like a broken nose or something weird like that, but I mean he was pouring blood.
Yeah,
you can see it on his jersey and everything.
Right. So that'll be interesting. And then we've talked about Montgomery a little bit. You talked about the coverage of the linebackers. One thing that I wrote about in Monday Morning Quarterback after the Minnesota win is Zach Lutmer did an incredible job of baiting Lindsey into that pick. They thought they had a wheel route one-on-one coverage to their tight end on Carson Shire, and it's like, oh, barbecue chicken. Like Iowa's been cooked by their linebackers early on in games all season, and then what does Lutmer do? Fire back, grab the interception, pick six. So that is something that I think you have to take into consideration when you're talking about how good these tight ends are. I'm pretty sure I heard somewhere that they're NFL. Like I'd have to go back and look, but they're guys that'll reach the NFL. But that's something of note to me when looking at those tight ends. What Lutmer did last week. I think Wampa and Entringer have been good in the back end in terms of coverage and help. When they need to help. I think. Like DeCorian Moore is he? I'd have to look. I think he's their leading wide receiver this year.
Correct.
Okay.
He is.
That's TJ Hall. TJ Hall's a senior. Corian Moore is a true freshman, a 5-star, but a true freshman.
Stud.
Truthfully, like long game, you would lean DeCorian Moore. This season, TJ Hall. I give the advantage to TJ Hall. He has been elite this year. Yes. I mean, I feel like we say that every podcast. I feel like I say that on every radio spot, but he has reached that level. Like he's getting picked in the NFL draft. And, like 2-3 years ago, somebody said that, you would have been like, what? But
I wouldn't have said that last year.
Nope.
Like even entering this season on film and anything. No, he was far too inconsistent. But now it's like, I'm talking like round 4. Like, I don't think he's going to test freakishly athletically, which is why, but like on tape, and especially having Iowa's reputation for strong defensive players, he's going to get picked. Something else
I think that's something that's really important that people might not talk about as much because of the weather conditions going into this game. I'm assuming Oregon's going to try their best to scheme up to get somebody else to have to cover him. But it's just another opportunity for Deshaun Lee to show that he's reached a new level too. So I really think TJ Hall has earned every bit of confidence that he's gotten from us, from the team, et cetera, this year. And this is another game where he can establish himself as one of the elite corners, not just the Big Ten, but the country.
Yeah, I mean, I think the flip side of it too is Deshaun Lee needs to continue that trajectory he's been on through the past couple weeks. I mean, like, let's not act like Iowa's faced elite passing teams over the last few weeks, but like from a confidence standpoint going into those things, that pays dividends, right? So I think that's something to take note. One of the most surprising and probably intriguing parts about this matchup, which not many national podcasts I've listened to or anybody's really brought up, Dan Lanning did in his opening statement, so I give him credit. It's the battle between the Oregon punt team and Caden Weechin. Weechin's been unbelievable this season, right? I mean, you're talking one more touchdown, man. Like, he's got a case to be the best returner in Iowa history. Like, that's how crazy – I know how crazy that sounds, but it's true. Did you know, though, Eliot, that you and I have more punt return yards than Oregon's allowed this season? Oregon has allowed -1 punt return yard this entire year.
Wow.
Leading the country. And who's on the other side? Number 1, Caden Weechin in the Iowa Hawkeyes. So I was talking about this with Tyler Kluver. We renamed it officially, so it's the Eickholt Kluver Power Hour. I'm a big fan of it. But
Okay.
I asked him about this, and it's something I can't get my mind off of. This is not discrediting Oregon and what they've done at all in the punt return game and on special teams. How freaking rattled do you think they're going to be if Weechen actually ends up being able to return a punt? They haven't had to handle it all season long. The flip side of it, though, too, is Weechen, as fast and athletic as he is, he's not going to outrun him. He's not. But if he gets the right angle and he makes the first one or two guys miss, I'll tell you what, man, I'd put money on Weechen to cash it rather than Oregon to stop him. If their gunners can't slow him down, I think Weechen's gone. So that's going to be a big, big deal in this game too. Can they get that hidden yardage? Because even if they get 45, 50 return yards total, which, by the way, again, by like season high, right? Like it's for Oregon that's allowed. That's 4.5, 5 first downs for Iowa. That will not show up on the stat sheet, but that matters when the game's all said and done. So that's something I'm really, really interested in seeing, especially if the conditions are that bad too.
Right. If if Caden Weechen gets an angle and maybe if KJ Parker kills a guy again, he'll help. But I would be. You mentioned the conditions, and I by no means was I ever a punter when I played football, but I'm curious.
You're far too athletic for that.
Yeah, I'm too big. I'm too big for that.
Yeah.
But I am curious. I'll have to ask Reese Dakin about this at some point when it's relevant, but or Coach Woods. But the punting and how much rain affects a punter's ability to maybe get distance, or if it's a situation where they just have to obliterate the ball because of like how hard it's raining. And then for Weechen, do you take the risk of returning the punt when it's going to be a little more slippery? So those are two things I think of. I mean, that is that number that you said, -1 yard, that's elite. Like I was pretty good in punt coverage. That is, I said TJ Hall's elite. That's like next level elite. That's crazy.
They've been awesome.
Yeah.
So again, that's where I'm like, if you're a special teams, it's like I throw them off. If they actually have somebody to return a punt. And again, not to discredit them, but like they haven't had to deal with it. Because it's the same argument I had when we talked about Iowa versus Indiana. Because again, Indiana deserves all the props in the world. I would vote them #1 in the country if I had a vote right now. That'd be my 1. Ohio State would be my 2. You can make a case for either, right? But the one thing I said was that Iowa had an advantage to some degree. Iowa's had to deal with adversity. Indiana had to deal with no adversity. Iowa put them on the ropes because Indiana didn't kill them right away. And that's a big reason why they were able to stay in the game. So it's kind of the same argument here. If Caden Weechen returns a punt, are they going to be able to step up to the plate? And again, I understand if Oregon fans want to have confidence in their unit. I'm not saying one way or the other. It's just more of a ponder, like a question I have in my mind of who's going to be able to step it up more and are they going to be comfortable doing that? They've proven it so far, but it's just a new wrinkle in the fold they haven't had to deal with because they've been so elite.
The other thing I'll say, and then we can probably get out of here because I know you got to run, but Iowa's going to take the ball first. Like I was going to take the ball first unless Oregon does. It wins the toss and decides to take it first.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might want to clarify that because it's
like Oregon does.
Sherlock. No dodge, Sherlock. Well, grade A analysis, by the way.
Thank you. Anyway, I think Iowa has a better chance of coming back from down 10-14 than they've had, again, in like 10, 15 years to mount a comeback like that.
Probably
I think
since 16.
Yeah. I think that Iowa, if they get out to a 10, 14 point lead, they have a better chance of burying Oregon than vice versa. Because we have now seen, and again, I reference Indiana and Wisconsin, even before Dante Moore was knocked out of the game, at the beginning of the game against Wisconsin, Oregon's offense didn't do anything. We've seen where they've felt like they've had to press, and they look awful when they have to press. And once that starts, that switch flips, I know Phil Parker is licking his chops. I know Max Llewellyn is licking his chops. I know Ethan Herkett, Aaron Graves licking their chops. I'm not necessarily predicting that Iowa jumps out to this big lead and holds them off and does what they did to Minnesota, to Oregon. That is not what I'm saying.
No.
But if they do get out to this lead, if they do get out to a 10, 14-point lead, we're talking like I'm going to be pretty confident at that point in time, personally. I would start to think,
yeah,
security better be ready for a field storming, because that's what's going to happen if that takes place.
Let me throw a stat at you and we'll wrap it up here. I'm gonna save our predictions because honestly, dude, I don't know if you've made up your mind. I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't know who I'm picking. I really don't. I might still end up picking Oregon. I really might. I think that Chad Leistiko brought up to Kirk Ferentz yesterday. And again, I may have butchered this stat, so don't criticize me, not Chad, if this is inaccurate. But based on the way I thought I heard his question, the last 2 times Iowa has been underdogs at home in November, 2016 against Michigan, 2017 against Ohio State. Just throwing that out there. We'll see what happens. But I think Sean is going to have our preview up. I think we'll have our preview up tomorrow. We usually put it up Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll probably will, especially with basketball on Friday as well.
We'll have visitor list tomorrow afternoon as well. It's going to be packed. Tons of visitors this weekend. Iowa is seizing the opportunity in front of them. And we'll see it if they do it on the field too. Kinnick is going to be electric.
I'll also have another podcast with our Oregon writer as well. So it'll be more of just a different outlook and get the chance to get to know Oregon more. So again, HawkeyeInsider.com, David Eickholt, Eliot Clough. We'll be back here probably, well, it depends. Might be back here Saturday night if Iowa ends up winning. Otherwise, we'll probably be back Sunday morning. And then, of course, I got a women's game on Sunday. So basically, just leave a browser open to HawkeyeInsider.com. There's far too much going on the next, forever to log off. But we'll talk to you soon, and thanks for tuning in.